coming in.
And on that note, we're back, folks. We are resuming the meeting now. We are at item 13, resolutions, and there is one item under resolutions tonight. That's under 13.1. That's a notice of surplus land. Recommendation reads that council declare the real property located along Boundary Street directly south of the CN rail line as surplus to the needs of the corporation of the town of Prescott, and that the subject property be used for the purpose of future residential development that maintains a portion for public access to park space, provides for a multi-use path connecting Boundary Street and with Duke Street, and provides adequate buffering to the residential properties to the south of the subject property, and that staff be directed to proceed with the notice provisions of bylaw 16-1995 for a period of 30 days. Could I ask for a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Shankar. Do I have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Young. Mr. Armstrong, most of the details are there, but can you just tell us what this sets in motion, please, so everyone at home is knows what the process is that we're beginning to undertake at this point?
Certainly. So this will set about a period where any interested parties can submit comments, questions, concerns in regarding to the notice of the surplus land. And at the end of the 30 days, we would bring those back to council for consideration and contemplation.
Thank you very much, Mr. Armstrong. I'll open it up to members of council for comments, questions, please. Councillor McConnell.
Thank you, Mayor Todd. As you know, we've discussed this. I'm of two minds here. First of all, I think it's premature, and second of all, I don't think it goes far enough. And I know it's kind of tough to reconcile those two opposing viewpoints, but we have a situation. We're building a new arena, and part of that new arena is playing fields, and a soccer field is part of that. The soccer field, the main soccer field that we have now, is going to become redundant when we have our new playing fields realized, and that's going to be in about 2 years' time. To me, if we are going to look for or express our interest in having development in this area, we would be more likely to attract a broader range of contractors interested in if we opened up that soccer field as surplus as well. That puts a broader area in that locale for development, and I think that should be done at this time. Now, that doesn't mean that tomorrow we're going to have houses going in our soccer field, but as we well know, with the amount of paperwork, with the amount of environmental assessments, with the drawings and stuff, you're 2 years down the road at least before you ever get shovels in the ground with any kind of development in that area. And I believe that we should be looking farther down the road and including more area in the surplus than we are at this time. I think we're limiting ourselves, and I think we may regret it down the road. Well, we may not regret it at all because we may not be in council. That would be the next term. But I think we should be looking farther ahead. Thank you, Mayor Todd.
Thank you very much, Councillor McConnell. Other comments? Councillor
Young. Mayor Todd, can we give a little bit more background of why we are doing this at this particular day?
I can ask Mr. Armstrong. I think we've provided most of what we can at this time, but Mr. Armstrong, anything else that we could possibly bring up this evening?
So council did receive an unsolicited offer, which prompted the conversation as to what the best use of that land is or should be. And so it's prompting this particular motion on the notice of surplus land. No deal has been agreed to or struck at this time by council.
In other words, there is one developer out there who would like to do something with part of this property. I think we should be clear on that. We're hopeful that there might be others, and we'll make a decision if there is.
Points, Councilor Shankar, please.
Along that line, I think it should be noted that this recommendation is for 30 days to provide this notice of provisions, even though our normal period is 10 days. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So we're providing lots of time for people to review and think about it.
Correct.
Thank you very much, Councilor Shankar. Are other members of council, anything from Councilors Ostrander and Jansen this evening? Not seeing much there. So I'll just have a couple quick comments myself. Yes, as noted, we did receive an unsolicited offer on these lands, but it does tie into the overall issue here, and that's housing. Housing is in crisis in Ontario. Housing is in crisis in Leeds and Grenville, and housing is in crisis right here in Prescott. We need to do what we can to open up properties in a safe and sustainable and acceptable manner to housing development. And this is an opportunity here that has been looked at a number of times in the past. And we are at the point where the housing issue is really starting to rise to one of the most important things that we can tackle as a municipality. We've been working on this matter, of course, as everyone knows, at Leeds and Grenville with our partners at Joint Services in the United Counties for well over a year now. And a motion like this tonight and looking at surplus lands and starting to identify them for the potential use of housing development, I think will help us deal with that housing crisis, provide more housing options in Prescott, and quite frankly, help us grow, which is also very much needed here in town. We do need to add houses. We do need to add more options and allow for affordable and accessible options for people as well, because that is obviously an issue here, affordability and also attainability with houses. So I would say that I totally agree with Councillor McConnell, but we've got to start somewhere. And I think this is actually a good start, and we could have more come forward in the not too distant future on this, specifically regarding what he's suggesting, but also there could be other options as well. Because as I say, we need to do something to address housing in Prescott and the area. Councillor McConnell, did you have another comment?
Thank you, Mayor Todd. I think it should be noted that in the plan of subdivision of that area, there were designated lots reserved as parkland, and that has absolutely nothing to do with this. It has no effect on that whatsoever. Those lands designated as parkland will remain parkland.
Very good point as well, which of course is covered in that public access to park space, but that does fill in a few more of the blanks there, as people well know the history, and we know the history of that area as well. With I think there's covenants on some part of that property, so that has definitely been respected with and will be respected with everything we do. And the other thing I will add, as part of the motion, that adequate buffering the residential properties to the south. We are going to do everything possible. If we do proceed with anything, I think I can safely say we are committed to doing what we can to ensure that any new residential development here or anywhere else in Prescott is done respecting their existing homeowners, and so that we can essentially create a neighborhood that is just as enjoyable to live in after the new development as it is now before the development. So that's key to anything we do here as well. And I don't want to put words in anyone's mouths, but I think that's something we all have achieved consensus on. We want to have a sustainable quality of life in town that we've always had, but with some additional growth. So any further comments on this? Councilor Ostrander.
Well, my only thought is we're missing a member of council tonight. Would it kill it to defer this for a week, the vote on it, and have all 7 of us here? Just a thought anyway. I know we all appreciate each other's opinions, and missing one tonight would maybe seem as a little unfair or hasty given the period of time we're talking here. Thanks.
Thank you. And I'll if anyone else wants to comment on this, but that's a tough one for me, simply because I think there is a sense of not so much urgency, but I think we've got to get the process started. As you know, Councilor McConnell mentioned how much time it does take to get these things off the ground. This will definitely not be the last time this item is looked at. This just really starts the process. So we're not finalizing anything, and Councilor Burton will, of course, have the full ability at follow-up meetings to be able to weigh in on this. So I would suggest we go ahead with the vote this evening and see where we're at. And it is on the table at this point. Councilor McConnell?
Thank you, Mayor Todd. In response to Mike, we do have the ability to turn down any proposal for this property. So Leanne would certainly have the opportunity to contribute at a future date.
Thank you, Councilor McConnell. See, Councilor Young has stepped away. Ray, are you still?
I'm still here.
In the neighborhood, because I was going to call the vote with no, I don't think we have any further comments. I don't see anyone else waving their arms. So I will call the motion on the question. All in favor? Motion is carried. Thanks very much, everyone. And this is obviously not the last we will hear of this issue, but I think it's a good step forward to opening ourselves up to good, sustainable residential development in the town of Prescott as a starting point. So on to 14, we have bylaws this evening. If you have a couple, 14.1 is on the recreation complex debenture bylaw. Recommendation reads that bylaw 09-2022 being a bylaw to authorize certain new capital works of the corporation of the town of Prescott, the municipality, to authorize the submission of an application to Ontario Infrastructure and Lands Corporation, known as OILC, for financing of such capital works, to authorize temporary borrowing from capital works, and to authorize long-term borrowing for such capital works to the issue of debentures to OILC, be read and passed, signed by the mayor and clerk, and sealed by the seal of the corporation. Could I ask for a mover, please? Moved by Councilor McConnell, seconded by Councilor Young. Any discussion on that? Matthew, did you want to comment at all? And this is, I assume, mostly just standard process as we move closer to the realization of the rec complex.
Absolutely. So this does allow us to obtain temporary borrowing for the construction of the arena and the recreation complex, as well as authorizing us to move forward with a debenture at the end of the process. It does not commit us to that final number. It allows us to enter an agreement with Infrastructure Ontario. When we actually decide to finish the construction phase and take out the debenture, another bylaw will be passed at that time, and at which time council will go through that, approve it, and it will become part of the long-term debt of the organization. But certainly, we're only allowed to apply to the federal and provincial infrastructure program once per year for expenses already incurred. And so we do need that construction loan to be able to balance off the timing of those payments, as well as the fundraising amounts that are coming in and the amounts that we're pulling from reserves. So it's important to get this in place, and we will be moving into some rather large months of construction expenses over the next several. And so we wanted to make sure that this was in place for them. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Armstrong. Any other comments? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Thanks, everyone. That's carried. 14.2 sidewalk plow debenture bylaw. Recommendation there reads that bylaw 10-2022 being a bylaw to approve the submission of an application to Ontario Infrastructure and Lands Corporation, OILC, for the long-term financing of certain capital works of the corporation in the town of Prescott, the municipality, and to authorize entering into a rate offer letter agreement pursuant to which the municipality will issue debentures to OILC, be read and passed, signed by the mayor and clerk, and sealed by the seal of the corporation. Can I ask for a mover, please? Moved by Councillor Young, seconded by Councillor Ostrander. Mr. Armstrong, second verse, same as the first.
Very much so. And so we purchased a sidewalk plow. This is to take the loan out for 5 years, which then in the second part of its useful life, we'll be putting that money back into reserve and being able to afford the next sidewalk plow that comes along. So wanted to make sure that this was in place now and be able to move that forward. Thank you.
Very good, sir. Thank you very much. Any comments, questions from members of council? Councilor McConnell, please.
Did I hear you correctly that we purchased, as in ED in the past, a sidewalk plow that we're financing now?
Last year.
Yeah. So we purchased it last year, and then just wanted to go through several months to make sure there was no additional apparatuses that we were buying for it. And there was none in the course of the remainder of 2021. So putting that in place now.
Okay, thank you. Well, for a minute there, I had lost my mind. I thought I had lost my mind because I thought we were buying another one. And I thought to myself, Jesus, we just bought one. Why the hell would we be buying another one? Okay, well, that clears that up. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, thanks. Thank you for the question. Any further comments? Seeing none, I will call the question. All in favor? Motion is carried. Thanks, everyone. And on to 15, new business. Any member of council have any new business to present tonight? Seeing no. 16, notices of motion. Any member of council have a notice of motion to read this evening? Also seeing no. 17, mayor's proclamations, nothing tonight. So we do have a closed session that I hope will be a brief one. So the recommendation is that council move into closed session at 8:04 p.m. to discuss matters pertaining to 18.1, approval of closed session minutes, 18.2, purchase and sale, and that's under section 239(2)(c) of the Municipal Act, proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board, and that the CAO treasurer, clerk, interim director of operations, economic development officer, and deputy clerk remain in the room. Could I ask for a mover, please? Moved by Councilor Shankar, seconded by Councilor, I think, Ostrander. Any discussion? Seeing none, I will call the question. All in favor? Thank you. That's approved. We will move into the closed session now, and we'll be back in not too lengthy a period of time for the rise.